Hey everyone, today I have an incredible thriller drama film to share with you. We're diving into the 2019 sensation Parasite. Heads up, spoilers ahead, so proceed with caution. In a small semi-basement apartment in Seoul, the Kim family does their best to survive. Father Ki-taek, mother Chung-suk, daughter Ki-jung, and son Ki-woo work folding pizza boxes for a very low wage and struggle to make ends meet. This makes them go as far as using their phones next to the bathroom window to steal Wi-Fi or keeping their windows open for the fumigator's poison smoke to enter the house and get rid of the bugs, even if they end up breathing it too. One evening, they're visited by Min Hyuk, a friend of Ki-woo's that brings them a scholar's rock from his grandfather's collection, meant to be an amulet for wealth. He also brings Ki-woo a work opportunity. Since Min Hyuk will be traveling abroad soon, he wants Ki-woo to take over his tutoring of the daughter of a very rich family. Ki-woo has good English knowledge after his years in the military and trying out the university entrance exam 4 times. Ki-jung can just fake his papers to pretend he's a university student since she's good with design programs. The wife is very simple-minded, so having Min Hyuk's recommendation should be enough. Wearing his best clothes and with the forged document in hand, Ki-woo goes to the Park family's house, which is in the fancy part of the city. The housekeeper, Guk Moon-gwang, lets him in, and he's interviewed by Mrs. Park, who barely looks at his paperwork and trusts Min Hyuk's recommendation. Ki-woo impresses her during the first lesson with her daughter, Da-hai, and secures the job. When Mrs. Park shows him her son's drawings, Ki-woo gets an idea. He begins talking about Da-song's art as if it was truly a masterpiece, and when Mrs. Park mentions she needs a new art teacher, Ki-woo recommends his cousin's classmate Jessica, a highly qualified art therapist. In truth, he's talking about his sister, who also shows up the next day for an interview while pretending to be this Jessica teacher after just having read some stuff about art therapy and psychology online. While Mrs. Park talks to her, Ki-woo tutors Da-hai, who is jealous of Ki-woo being friends with the art teacher. Ki-woo assures her he isn't interested in her, then the two of them kiss. Back to Ki-jung, she convinces Mrs. Park to let her give Da-song his first lesson alone, and by the end of it, she impresses her by showing her how well-behaved her son is now. She also shows Mrs. Park signs of trauma on Da-song's paintings, mentioning an incident he went through during first grade. Convinced her son needs art therapy, Mrs. Park hires Ki-jung under excellent pay. Later that day, she also meets the family father, Park Dong-ik, who offers his chauffeur Yoon to drive her home. Yoon insists on taking her to her house, but wanting to hide she lives in a poor area to keep up the lie, she asks him to leave her at the train station because she's meeting someone. During that trip, Ki-jung gets an idea and takes out her panties to hide them in the car. Mr. Park finds the panties in the car and thinks Yoon has been taking lovers in the vehicle, so he decides they'll be firing him, and Ki-jung swoops in, saying a mature employee is more trustworthy before recommending her uncle's old driver. Of course, this man turns out to be Ki-taek, who used to work as a chauffeur when younger. He goes for a test drive with Mr. Park, who is impressed by his good manners and his vast knowledge of the city that doesn't need GPS to reach his location. His driving is so smooth, Mr. Park doesn't even spill his drink when the car turns, so he hires him on the spot. The last part of the plan is the most difficult one. Moon-gwang is a stubborn, cunning woman that has been working in that house since it was owned by a previous family. One of the most striking uses of food in Parasite is how the Kims weaponize it to secure their positions. Ki-woo learns from Da-hai that peaches are forbidden in the house because Moon-gwang is allergic, so he and Ki-jung begin throwing peach fuzz at her when she isn't noticing. They cause her to have severe allergic reactions, leading the Parks to believe she has tuberculosis. This deception results in Moon-gwang being fired, making way for Chung-suk to become the new housekeeper. The peach thus becomes a symbol of the Kims' cunning and the Parks' gullibility. As the Kims secure jobs within the Park household, their diet begins to improve. Their table gradually fills with a greater variety and quantity of food, reflecting their increased purchasing power. They even treat themselves to a meal at the pizza restaurant where they previously worked, a poignant moment illustrated by the empty pizza boxes in the background, symbolizing their past struggles. Despite their improved diet, the Kims cannot escape the stigma of their poverty. The Park family's young son, Da-song, notices they all smell the same, but they realize it isn't the soap, it's the smell of their old cheap apartment, a smell he associates with poverty. Bong Joon Ho uses food to convey this to the audience when Ki-taek describes the smell as similar to that of turnips. This olfactory imagery reinforces the notion that poverty is not just a visual or financial condition, but one that permeates deeply into the senses and social perceptions. One day, the Parks leave on a camping trip and leave Chung-suk taking care of the house, so as soon as they're gone, the whole Kim family comes over to stay for a while. They use all the rooms, eat all the food, drink the expensive wines, and Kai-woo even steals Da-hai's diary to read it, because he wants to propose to her when she gets into the university. The Kims spend their dinner fantasizing about what marrying into a rich family would be like. This temporary enjoyment of wealth is an illusion, a fleeting moment where they can pretend to be part of a world that remains fundamentally out of reach. The house, filled with high-quality food and expensive drinks, symbolizes the unattainable lifestyle they yearn for, but cannot sustain. However, their celebration is interrupted when Moon-gwang returns, claiming she forgot something in the basement. Chung-suk discovers a hidden door leading to a secret bunker, where Moon-gwang's husband, Gyun-sai, has been hiding for years from loan sharks. She would go down there and sneak in some food for him when the Parks weren't looking, which explains why Mr. Park thought she ate too much. Moon-gwang begs Chung-suk to keep their secret, but the Kims' presence is accidentally revealed, leading to a tense confrontation. Moon-gwang records the Kims on her phone, threatening to expose them. A struggle ensues, but the situation takes a turn when the Parks call, announcing their early return due to the storm. While they struggle, the phone rings. Mrs. Park is calling because the camping trip got canceled and they are returning home due to the heavy rain. She orders japaguri, a dish prepared in 8 minutes. The climax of the film involves this dish that is a cheap meal often eaten by students, but Mrs. Park requests to be prepared with premium Hanwoo beef, an expensive addition. This dish, a fusion of low and high, represents the social hierarchy with the rich on top. The juxtaposition of cheap noodles with costly beef starkly illustrates the disparity between the Kims and the Parks, highlighting the artificial barriers constructed by wealth and social status. As the Kims scramble to prepare the meal in time, the tension mounts, culminating in a series of violent and tragic events. Chung-suk quickly prepares dinner, Ki-taek ties up Gyun-sai in the basement, and Ki-jung and Ki-woo hide under the furniture. The Parks arrive, oblivious to the chaos that just unfolded. The Kims remain hidden while the Parks go about their evening. The next morning, Mrs. Park decides to throw an impromptu birthday party for Da-song. Woo is invited because Mrs. Park thinks he's Da-hai's boyfriend. Ki-woo is allowed to enter the house before the rest of the guests to talk to Da-hai alone, and while Mrs. Park isn't watching, he goes downstairs to finish off Moon-gwang and Gyun-sai, but he finds the wife already dead. Enraged and desperate over his wife's death, Gyun-sai attacks Ki-woo with the scholar's rock and leaves him in the bunker unconscious. Gyun-sai sneaks out of the basement, grabbing a knife on his way to the garden, where he begins to stab guests. Ki-jung gets hurt in the middle of the chaos, and when Mr. Park shouts at Ki-taek to throw him the car keys, Ki-taek tosses them. However, they fall under Gyun-sai's body, so Mr. Park has to come to get them, and when he does, he frowns in disgust at the smell of the body. This is Ki-taek's breaking point. He grabs the knife and kills Mr. Park before running away. Weeks later, Kai-woo wakes up from brain surgery to find his sister dead and his father missing. He and his mother face trial for fraud, but are released on probation due to the traumatic events. The house gets sold to a German family, and Kai-woo finds out the truth one day after going to the mountain that allows him to see the house, where he discovers his father has been hiding in the basement, so he writes him a letter promising that someday he'll make enough money to buy that house and get him out of there. This final letter to his father, outlining a grand plan to rescue him by buying the house, serves as a poignant commentary on the cyclical nature of poverty and the illusion of the American dream, or its Korean equivalent. The immediate cut to his reality underlines the improbability of such dreams coming true. Parasite seamlessly hops between different tones and styles. Bong himself referred to it as a tragic comedy, managing to infuse real tension and suspense while also being incredibly witty and amusing. The whole film falls somewhere between comedy and tragedy, with the stakes developing to dizzying heights as the always scheming Kims get deeper and deeper into their plot. The climactic violent confrontation at the party symbolizes how violence transcends social boundaries, affecting both the rich and the poor indiscriminately. It also marks the ultimate breakdown of social pretenses and the exposure of raw human emotions. Parasite masterfully uses food as a symbol to explore themes of social inequality, class struggle, and the human desire for a better life. Through the contrasting diets of the Kim and Park families, Bong Joon Ho reveals the deep-rooted disparities in society. The Kims' manipulation of food to improve their circumstances and the Park's oblivious consumption of luxury items underscore the parasitic relationship between the rich and the poor. Ultimately, the film challenges us to question who the real parasites are in a capitalist society and compels us to reflect on the pervasive and often invisible structures that sustain inequality. The Kims, like parasites, invade the Park's lives, taking what they can and eventually destroying the host and themselves. The film mirrors societal inequality, where the poor exceed their desires instead of managing with what they have, and the wealthy remain oblivious to the dangers around them. The title Parasite reflects how both the lower and upper classes leech off each other. The Parks live comfortably off the labor of others, while the Kims manipulate their way into the Park's household. Parasite gained immense recognition, including the Palme d'Or and the Academy Award for Best Picture, for its incisive social commentary wrapped in a genre-bending narrative. Thanks for joining me as we broke down this incredible film. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for more movie breakdowns. See you next time.